I'm Sarah Woodbury, and today I'll be talking about the siege of Kenilworth at the end of the Second Barons' War between Simon de Montfort and King Henry III of England. Kenilworth Castle plays an important role in the Barons' War, which was a rebellion begun by Simon de Montfort, whose castle this was. Kenilworth had been a royal castle fortified by Henry's father. Once his father died and Henry himself ascended the throne, he gave it as a gift to Simon de Montfort, his brother-in-law, potentially in an attempt to ensure his loyalty. In the 13th century, Simon married the sister of King Henry. Things went well between them for a while, but over time, King Henry was proven to be somewhat inept in the eyes of his barons, and more importantly, he didn't adhere to the strictures of the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta had put restrictions on the right of the king to tell his barons to go to war, and particularly to tax them. Things came to a head in 1264, and Simon de Montfort felt it was time for rebellion. Simon allied with a whole bunch of barons and went to war. These barons included Gilbert de Clare and Prince Llywelyn of Wales, with whom he agreed to split all of England and Wales into 3 parts should he defeat the king. In the end, however, he died at Evesham, and Kenilworth Castle, where I'm standing now, was the last besieged castle to hold out against the forces of the king. The siege began on June 25th, 1266. The last holdouts in the war retreated to Kenilworth, and when Henry attempted to negotiate with the defenders, they sent back his messenger without his hand. By the time the royal forces assembled at Kenilworth Castle, the garrison, who probably numbered about 1,200 and included women, children, and servants, had built up stocks of enough food to hold out for months. They also had siege engines, which, according to a contemporary chronicler, were hitherto unheard of among us and unseen. The king, for his part, had also amassed a huge arsenal of weaponry, including 2,000 wooden hurdles, which were screens to protect the royal soldiers from missiles, 60,000 crossbow bolts, and 9 siege engines. Some of the stone balls thrown by the siege engines at Kenilworth weighed up to 140 kilos and were found by archaeologists in the 1960s. Starting that day in June, the king began bombarding the castle with what has been described as a continuous stream of missiles. Their efforts were thwarted, however, by the superior range of the weaponry inside. Another chronicler described the stone projectiles from the 2 sides clashing in the air. As a result, the king had to send to London for larger siege engines, one of which, a siege tower large enough to contain 200 crossbowmen, was made useless by a well-aimed missile. Kenilworth's water defenses also foiled the attempts on the part of the royal forces to undermine the castle walls. The grass behind me was once a lake, filled in and created by the builders of the castle. Thus, the king hauled barges overland from Chester in hopes of assaulting the castle from the mere. These attempts were also thwarted by the defenders. Knowing his authority was daily being undermined and desperate to restore his prestige, King Henry called a parliament near the castle in October. This resulted in the peace terms known as the Dictum of Kenilworth, issued on the 31st of October, 1266. Returning forfeited lands to the rebels provided they paid heavy fines. Even with this agreement, the garrison fought on another 6 weeks. In the end, with Henry ordering further forces to prepare to storm the castle, the defenders were suffering too much from disease and starvation. Thus, on the 13th of December, 1266, the remnant of the garrison submitted to the terms that had been offered in October. Henry even allowed them to leave with their arms, their horses, and their harness. Only 2 days' supply of food remained in the castle. At 172 days, The siege was the longest in English medieval history. Even with this victory, it took another year to fully end the Civil War. The siege was also ruinously expensive, leaving Henry so short of money that he had to pawn the jewels from the shrine of King Edward the Confessor in Westminster Abbey to pay for it. Perhaps the siege's greatest impact was on Prince Edward, who succeeded his father to the throne of England in 1272 as King Edward I. At Kenilworth Castle, he had seen the full array of the latest weaponry pitted against a formidable modern fortress, in a type of warfare refined by crusaders in the Middle East and France. This direct experience of how castles worked informed his thinking in time for the Crusades, upon which he embarked in 1270, and his great castle-building and besieging campaigns from 1277 onwards in Wales and Scotland. Thanks for watching my video. You can click on the playlist or subscribe to my channel to see more. There'll be a new video next week. If you want to check out my books, click on the link to my webpage.